I don't know whether I'm an audio purist or not, but I can definitely hear people who are audio purists think this is a terrible idea. I, at some point, would have probably said that I'm a purist and like all this digital stuff is stupid. When it all comes down to it, I just want to make music and the other stuff to just get out of the way. And if a system like this can get out of the way and it's cheaper and it's more flexible and you can move it if you have to move your building, or if you're doing this in an apartment or a house that you're renting and you can take the stuff with you.
Oh, hey everyone.
Welcome back.
Hey, Jeremy.
That was a long, you're like, hey.
Welcome back to Phantom Power Hour. I'm Josh.
And I'm Jeremy.
And I know that you see me drinking all this all the time. And you see me drink. If you look real close, have you seen this before? It says to like and subscribe.
You even got me on that one. I was like, wait.
This is a weird way to start this. Why is he talking about his drink?
But how long has it been since we've seen each other?
I think it's been 2 weeks.
2 weeks. What's changed in those 2 weeks?
Oh, man. Probably the global economy, gas prices.
Your age.
My age.
Right.
This is true. I am now a full 365 days older.
Yeah.
I survived another trip around the sun.
Homeboy celebrated a birthday, and we missed it. So that's why that candle's there.
Oh, that's my birthday candle?
I don't have a birthday. Yeah, and yeah.
I'll drink the wax. I'll blow the candle out and drink the wax.
But I made you.
Oh, what? You made me cottage cheese.
Okay. First thing to realize here, we're in the Midwest, and if you see a cottage cheese container or a Cool Whip container
or Country Crock or
butter,
Country
Crock, that's not what's in there. We use this as Tupperware, folks.
That's upcycling, I think, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
So given our past conversations and the fact that you only ever see us consume caffeine and protein.
Oh, this is true.
I didn't make you a cake, but
Okay.
I made you, I mean, it might be gross, but it's a protein cookie dough.
Oh, this sounds great.
It's really good, actually. I don't know if you like it, but I'll eat it first and show you it's not poison.
Oh, okay.
Because this
is how he tricks me. He has one little specific bite not poisoned.
The rest is poison.
The rest is poisoned.
My kids love it.
Oh, man. I was wondering what that text was yesterday. In the middle of the day, Jeremy just randomly texts me, and he says, are you allergic to milk or almonds or... I don't remember the other things you asked, but essentially asked me chocolate, I think was one of them. Mm-hmm. And the following text said, I promise that this isn't nearly as romantic as it sounds. But I will say, protein desserts are the way to my heart, Jeremy.
Dude, it's
unintentionally romantic.
One of my favorites. My kids love it. It's basically just vanilla protein powder, almond flour, cottage cheese, vanilla, a little salt, and I used real chocolate chips because sugar-free that ain't
they give you a bad time.
Oh boy. Mm-hmm. So worth a little bit of cost in the...
That'd be the Phantom Poopy Hour.
Oh, here we go again. So here's what's going on in my world. Mm-hmm. I am mainly Pro Tools based here. Mm-hmm. I say mainly. I am Pro Tools based. What would the mainly be for? HDX card running Burl converters. I'm hanging an Avid HDIO off of that card as well. So I have 64 in, 64 out. That sounds like a ton. And if you would have talked to me like 10 years ago when I was building the studio, I'd been like, I'm never going to max that out. Guess what? I maxed it out.
Oh, geez.
So I'm looking at different options of either buying another HDX card and locking myself in there, or switching to some other form of running the studio. And I'm kind of looking at some other form. And what is that form, you might ask? Dante?
Dante.
I'm no professional in this arena, but I've been diving in head first. I've talked to really cool people at Focusrite. There's no partnership or anything, just talking to them, really cool people. learned a lot there talking to buddies who have done it. I've worked live in a whole lot of different contexts where Dante is like king live right now. And the possibilities for the studio are pretty crazy. And the flexibility is really interesting to the point where if I were going to build a studio from scratch, it would be Dante.
Okay.
And that would mean getting rid of a lot of things that we like kind of keep close to the vest. Like there would be no more running copper in the building. Like
really,
no more ISO booths would get like studio lines. I wouldn't have to run Snake to those rooms.
I'm interested to hear more about this. So I come from a predominantly home studio type of setup. That's where 90% of my work gets done when I'm not in here or in a few other studios. So I have some knowledge in the traditional setup, but then most of my knowledge base is you get a computer, you have a DAW, you have an interface, and then maybe a few pieces of hardware like rack gear or something. So I know of Dante. I've heard the word thrown around. I've read Dante's Inferno, which is pretty great, but seems very unrelated. I'm trying to make the connection.
There's 7 layers of hell to this thing.
So I'm excited to learn a little bit more about it. I know that you say you're not like a full-fledged professional in the area of Dante, but...
No, I am not Dante certified. It's definitely on my list of things to do. That said, I use Dante weekly, sometimes twice weekly, either in a front of house situation or broadcast. It can be very complex, but the overarching ideas of it are very simple. And it makes a whole lot of very complicated things, like in a studio situation, and mapping things to different locations, taking splits, like it simplifies everything.
Let's play a little game. We're going to play, I tell you what I think Dante is, and you tell me how wrong I am.
Okay.
Okay. So
help me out in the comments.
So my very basic caveman understanding of Dante is it's essentially a different type of brain to run how a studio can be like kind of interconnected, how you get your channels to go through. I also think that Dante itself uses converters. Is that right? Is it part of the conversion process too?
Mm-hmm. Well, Dante is like essentially a connection type. I mean, Audinate created Dante. Think of it like a protocol.
Okay.
So everything is digital all the time, which that gets a lot of pushback in the space because, well, do we want everything digital? Do we want to be converting everything? The thing about that is like we're converting stuff anyway. Like even in my space with my converters, I don't want to go too far down.
Yeah. I'm not trying to get you to frog leap ahead of topics here, but so is Dante, the term Dante, is that the term used for a module? Is that the term used for the type of connection? Is it both?
Yeah, I don't know. Let's look it up.
Okay, let's find out.
Because I feel like this is the conversation that I've been having with everybody too. It's like, okay, I functionally know the things that can happen with Dante. I can see the possibilities of it in my own studio build. What is it?
Right.
And how does it relate, or how is it the antithesis of what I currently have as an HDX system? So my whole understanding has been coming from that place. I clearly don't know all the applications of Dante. One of the cool ones is actually video.
Okay.
That's a recent one. You can like screen caps, camera feeds, you can send them anywhere that's networked.
With Dante.
With Dante.
So it can just pass any information essentially along the type of lines that are interconnected. But you said that you don't have to run copper. So is Dante...
I guess I mean like snake cable.
Right.
So like traditional XLR snake, like 8-pair cable go into each one of my rooms here, and then there's 24 in there, and there's 24 in here. that stuff alone and setting up the studio was thousands of dollars.
Oh, I believe it. And tons of work.
Yeah, and there's a whole lot of like snake oil around cables, and that can get like into a conversation all its own.
And part of that snake oil still has some valid truth, right? In terms of shielding, and things of that nature.
I mean, there's definitely like an arc at which point you could spend more money and not get any more higher quality out of it.
Yeah, but you definitely need gold-plated tips, right? And like 12 layers of insulation.
The gold-plated tips thing. Oh man. I mean, if you have a properly shielded cable and the tip is soldered, not solderless, you're typically doing fine. I mean, even solderless will do you fine for a while. The problem is oxygen is going to get into that connection and oxidize it. Eventually, you will have problems, which, you can have that discussion on your own if that's right for you. The main thing here is like in this building, when I was doing it, we put Megami, I don't remember the exact model, but
anything Megami, that's why it costs so much, Jeremy.
It was expensive.
Goodness gracious.
But back then, like you couldn't really get super cheap bulk cable anyway. Like you could get cheap cables, but it's not like
just hop onto Alibaba and bulk order some cable. So if Dante doesn't utilize traditional XLR cables in the same way, what does it use? Is it Ethernet, like Cat5 based?
Well, here you go. Here's your definition.
Okay,
Dante, or digital audio network through Ethernet. That's what Dante stands for. We're all learning today.
I like, what are those called? Acronyms? I like those.
Yeah.
Not alliterations.
A combination of software and hardware that transmits digital audio over Ethernet network. Dante networks can use Cat5e cables or fiber optic cables and can run over existing fast gigabit Ethernet IT infrastructure. Dante is used in many professional environments.
So that's pretty righteous. Just the fact that I could, again, I don't know a lot. Maybe I'm saying all the wrong things, but if I were to purchase a new building or move into a new building to set up a studio for the first time, that seems like an awesome idea, because if I have Ethernet ran throughout the building already,
your build's done.
I just need to put the brain where I want it and then decide what rooms have what stations.
And even the brain, that's a whole discussion too. Because what I'm looking at doing is, because I don't want to sacrifice quality, but what I want to gain is, can I have more stuff hooked up all the time? And I mean, with the channel, like if people send me something, I want to incorporate it easily while I can still have my stuff set up for sessions. Like, so I understand how like first world of an issue that is. But at the same time, if you're somebody or you're functioning space and you like to have stuff set up all the time, this is really, from the beginning, from the ground floor, no more or less of an investment than going with like a traditional setup.
Yeah.
And I say traditional, which I wholly believe that in like 10 years' time, this will be traditional.
Well, and time saving is its own form of saving money too. So.
Yeah. And even repairs. Like, I've had issues with some of the cables ran. I mean, if you need to fix a cable in a wall, that is super hard. But if all you need to do is snake a Cat5e cable somewhere, that's pretty darn easy.
Yeah.
And considering over one gigabit Cat5e cable, you can have 128 back and forth.
Oh my god.
It's bonkers.
That is insane. Yeah.
Yeah. And the latency depends on the card that you have. But like my HDX system right now, it's in the ultra seconds of latency. But if you were to get like Focusrite's new PCIe NX card, which slots into your computer or a PCIe hub just like an HDX card would, albeit a fraction of the cost of an HDX card, and you don't need the back end licensing to run it, it's faster on paper.
And
now,
theoretically, if you opted for fiber optic versus the like Cat5 cable, then you'd have more speed, I
Well,
would think.
I don't think it's not limited by the medium because it's just transferring ones and zeros.
It's just the
it's how
ports
fast
that
it can decode and encode. I may be saying that incorrectly. But my whole thing, and it's really hard to talk to people to be like, okay, I have an HDX system. I have never had to think about latency. So if I switch to Dante, if I get this card, if I switch my Burl, which a mothership which has the BNB1 card, which is DigiLink, which hooks into an HDX card. If I switch that to a BNB3, which is a Dante card, now I'm going Burl into a Focusrite card as opposed to Burl into an HDX card. What does my latency look like? And on paper, identical. And I finally found somebody I could talk to who's actually done it.
Okay.
Who is not part of another company. They're like, you're not going to notice a single thing. You're not going to notice a single difference. And then so that got me on the train of like, okay, what is HDX doing for me that I still need it? Because
it's providing you with an opportunity to buy a license, Jeremy.
Yeah. I don't get me wrong. And this is not to hate on like Avid or HDX because there's definitely a place for that. I think like there are certain use cases where HDX may be necessary. I can't really think of any because that's not my world. But 10 years ago, it would be really hard to do what I do on the scale without HDX.
For sure.
Because there's just not a lot out there. But now I'm like, well, computer processing is exponentially better than what it used to be. And
the cup overflows.
Yeah.
If you will.
So like, do we really need these cards offloading this processing power from our computers? Do we really need that? When a lot of times these cards are more expensive than just getting the next step up in whatever computer you're getting.
Yeah.
And you can use it in more facets. Like, do you want to use your computer or something other than audio? I don't know. But so looking at all this stuff, like a Ball and Dante card that gets you as fast or faster speeds than HDX is like $1,700 or I think $1,599. So
that doesn't, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, that doesn't seem like a terrible ticket price.
Now, I think we got to all of this because we're talking about brain of the system, right?
Yeah.
And the whole thing with this, I can't talk and type at the same time. Hang on.
Put some old-timey circus music or something in here.
So I'm mainly looking at like RedNet stuff, and I know there's more out there, but this card seems the fastest, and I like the price. So $1,599, this would replace essentially my HDX card, which is 64 by 64 in and out. There's other things that HDX offers. I'm not necessarily using those things, HDX, and my workflow is not so much that I'm using all of the benefits of HDX because the computer is taking care of stuff. Like when I really step back and take a look at my workflow from a studio standpoint, I put plugins on basically everything, and I'm monitoring through Pro Tools. So you're listening to the latency just like I am. So I've kind of built a whole workflow around I'm not necessarily using like hosted HDX DSP because that's a switch and I never turn it on because it turns everything else off after it, which is super annoying. But like, so then in that case, is it even necessary? Like, what am I doing here? Why do I have this really expensive piece of gear?
You just got that big box so you can have the channels you need.
Yeah. I mean, but a few years ago, like I was using it like that because my computer couldn't do what it can do now. Yeah. So it might be time for a little change.
A little change. And that card looks so much smaller than your HDX.
Well, no, it's a one PCI slot. So if you're looking at an Avid HDX card, by the way, let me see the prices on these things.
Oh my.
Mm-hmm. $5,000. 64 in, 64 out.
Jeremy, just sell yours and buy 4 Dantes.
The resale on these is awful.
Really?
Awful.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah. But the whole reason I was looking at it to begin with, like, okay, I could go Dante, or I could just get another D or another card. And if I buy a used one, I can pick one up for $1,500. So kind of a catch-22. But I don't know if I want to go down this road again, because it kind of locks me into like an Avid Pro Tools focused workflow.
Yeah.
Because as soon as I hop into another DAW, whatever benefits I do have HTX are gone.
Yeah.
Now, to take an even farther step back, like if I'm looking at this, somebody else wants to come in and use the studio. Say they want to use Logic, which a lot of people use Logic in Pro Studios, or they want to use Cubase. A lot of people use Cubase.
Or Ableton, maybe the coolest DAW of them all, some people think.
I mean, I have nothing. Sure, let's go. But you wouldn't be getting the benefit of an HDX system because you're not running Pro Tools software.
Right.
So to go with all of these thoughts, is it necessary at all? Or am I just comfortable because I've been doing that for a decade?
Right.
Like, and the world around me has changed. So now like all these other options are okay. Or more feasible, I guess.
Yeah.
Not okay. They were always okay. But
I mean, all I know is that when I was growing up, I had the Sound Blaster sound card.
Hardly know her. I remember that too.
Yeah.
Trying to put instruments into the line input.
Dude, I didn't try. I did. I had my very first recording setup at home. I was probably 11 or 12 or something. And I had the Sound Blaster card that had a single, just like, I remember the ring is green and you had like this auxiliary input. So I got a 1/8 inch to 1/4 inch adapter for an instrument cable. And I was using Sony Acid as my DAW. And that was the first recording setup. It was terrible. But got me using stuff.
What were you talking about? Go on. Did I interrupt you?
Oh, no.
No, sorry. There was a pause.
There was a pause. Bear pause. I was just going to say the Sound Blaster card also came with a little game where you could fly around and shoot these birds. And it made no sense, but it had it on there.
I don't remember that.
You didn't go digging.
I didn't.
So you've got the conundrum. Do you stay on the Avid train? Do you depart and get a ticket for the Dante train? So what are you've kind of outlined some of the pros and cons, right? The biggest pro being the networking solution is going to be much more simplified. Granted, you will have to redo a lot of what you've already done, right?
I mean, I already have Cat 5e all over the building because of the power plays.
Yeah.
Like the network's already there. I will have to run some other lines, but it's easy.
Yeah. Okay, so that's not really a con. Potential kind of just not relearning, but regathering experience with this new kind of platform, right? But in reality, if things on paper are the way they actually feel in the control room, couldn't it also just feel like a plug and play? Like you pull that card out, you put the new one in, get the settings the way they're supposed to be.
That's the part I don't know. That's the part that's like that scares me and why I haven't pulled the trigger. And also because up to this point, I physically haven't been able to get all the pieces to do it. Now everything's available because there for a while, like Dante cards, you just couldn't find them. People were going through their stock. The factories were down. But now that's not the case. You can get it anywhere. And the Brooklyn 3 cards are just fast. They are fast. And to the point where, like, I don't think my main concern was with this whole thing, because of the way HTX operates, I hear latency every time we record in the control room, but you guys don't. And that's the thing that matters. Like, will the performers notice a difference? So every question that I've been asking is like, will my players notice a difference? And if that answer's no, let's go.
Yeah.
Because the benefits of a system like this, like you were talking about a brain. What's the brain? There really is no brain. It's almost like an open source you can kind of think of it like your whole studio becomes open source.
Yeah.
It's like you can pick one thing to be your master. For me, that will be the burls, because the way Burl does clocking is just chef's kiss. It's amazing. So I could basically set my burls to be the master of the system. But I could set up, if I wanted to, I could get some Dante 8-channel preamps and literally set them right next to the drums.
Oh, man.
Yeah, so then the cable runs are 6 feet, and then after that, it's digital.
Yeah.
So my thought there, like with Pro Tools, once something's digital, it's hard to get back out, because I would need a whole other set of converters. I would need, and that's still the case here, but with Dante, it gets a little easier, because you could hook all of your gear up without me changing very much. I could basically use the dad mom software, which outlines all of your inputs and outputs on a grid. And I could say, like, okay, hey, those drums that are in there, I want to put the distressor here. I want to put this EQ here. I want to put my ELOP on my overheads, and like I don't have to touch a patch bay.
That sounds so nice. So help me understand this aspect, if you can. You had mentioned you could put your preamps right by the drums and just run the cable straight to that. From my perspective, just watching you work, the downside would be, well, now you have to be out here to adjust the preamps, right? Unless you're, I don't know if you saw, but he had some eyebrow twitches.
So not everything operates like this, but it opens you up to like remote control devices. So something like the 1073 OPX, which selling one of my 1073s would purchase multiple of these. The bummer is you don't have an EQ, but like I could set it next to the drums. I could lock the panel so nobody could mess with it, but I can control the gain from the control room or from anywhere.
That's
I
pretty
could
crazy.
control it remotely.
Yeah.
Like, so it's just, I love that idea. I know there's a whole thing with like how much software do we want involved here, but quality of life things like this, I'm like, man, if I could just get good tones faster, holy cow. Like, cause that's the interesting part for me. Like, how quick can we get to making art and the stuff just gets out of the way?
Yep.
And that's where I feel like a system like this would just get out of the way. Cause if I was building a studio, I mean, you don't have to have this one in every room, but like some remote controllable preamp in every individual ISO booth. My gosh, talk about easy. And then you're just running Ethernet cable.
Yeah.
The converters are fantastic because the converter quality is based on the piece that you get. You could get crappy converters and put them on a Dante network and it'll suck.
Yeah.
But if you're getting good converters and you're clocking to something that's solid, which anymore, so many clocks are incredible. I would be clocking to my burls because that's my strongest point. But
I was always a fossil man when it comes to clocks and watches.
all right, no relic.
Yep. Help me understand this though. So with your current setup and with all the type of studio setups I'm familiar with, you've got essentially like snake patch bay things built into the wall. XLR goes in there. Everything gets funneled back to your control room and then hits, the patch bay and yada, 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 right?
Yada, yada, yada.
What I'm trying to understand now is if Ethernet's ran everywhere, does that mean you will now need preamp/converter for every line that you want to send back to the control room?
It depends. Like if I was rebuilding the studio and I didn't have copper already, yeah, you could do it that way. I mean, for me, that's not going to be the most cost beneficial way to do it.
Right.
Like if I want to replace some preamps anyway, that'd be a cheap way to do it because I could still have all the lines in here to work with my stuff traditionally, and I could have a dedicated set for the drums or whatever happens in here. Like it's just easier to add this to the system, and once you add it into the Dante network, it just shows up. It's just there. As long as you're not over your 128, it's just there and it's available for you. Where if I wanted to get a set of preamps now, I'm completely maxed out. So
Right.
I would either have to get like another HDX card to allow me to purchase more more burl cards, which are really expensive. Or I get another like HDIO and hang it off, which is expensive.
Yeah.
And then even then, you still have to buy the preamps.
Yeah.
So it's like...
And that's just you kind of... You're just spending some more money to be able to facilitate maybe a couple other additional pieces of gear, / lines or something.
Yeah.
Whereas this, Jeremy, you're not doing a good job of convincing me to not convince you to convert your whole studio.
It's one of those things like I want to do this because I see the benefit here. And if I were to ever leave this building, a lot of the stuff isn't coming with me. Like the cables, they're trash.
Yeah.
The cables that are in the walls, that's trash. Basically everything else can come with me, but that's thousands of dollars. That's just there.
And hours of work.
And it's not really something that I can take out and install somewhere else.
And you probably wouldn't want to anyway.
I mean, the amount of abuse you would be just getting them out of the walls.
Exactly.
It's done. Like
they're probably grody and you'd have to touch them.
A little Goo Gone does a lot for a cable, but which I have done. Makes them look brand new, by the way.
I believe it.
Goo Gone. If you have gaff tape that sucks, Goo Gone can fix your problem.
Gaff tape is just like one of the best creations.
Unless you buy cheap gaff tape.
That's fair. Yeah.
Then it's the worst.
Oh, no, you got goof tape. Slightly different. Gotcha. Yeah, man, I'm not hearing anything bad about Dante. What's bad stuff about Dante? Why is it not just industry standard? Everyone uses it. Other than the fact that it was hard to get your hands on for a while.
Because it's relatively new. Like it's a different way to think about setting up an audio. Like you're now an audio specialist has to become like a network specialist. Not something we're used to.
That's fair, but you kind of already were.
But I mean, it's a learning curve for me to think about, okay, I don't know the difference between like gigabit. I don't know what this means. So like my understanding of it is like this big. And talking to some of the other individuals that I've talked to, like some buddies, the guys at Focusrite, or people who aren't involved in businesses at all, hearing from all of those different situations and what's possible with it, I'm like, this is really cool. It's really cool. And the pushback that I have had on some of my videos on my channel, people have been like, well, it's an unstable platform. Like, well, why would you want everything digital? It's like, it's not necessarily that everything's digital. It's where you're making it digital. Because in my studio, everything's digital eventually. And if I'm coming into Pro Tools and then leaving Pro Tools to go into Outboard, it's digital, then analog, then digital, then analog. Like it happens 4 times.
Yeah.
It's really no different. It's just how far are my XLR runs? How much money am I paying to get that digital stuff into my computer?
Yeah.
And if you're starting from the ground up, this seems like a really cheap way to do it. And I don't know, unless I'm just completely missing something.
I'm not the one to tell you if you are.
And you don't need the crazy like PCIe stuff. One of the pieces that I was looking at, like PCIe works for me because it would integrate with my system.
Yeah, you already have the slot for it and everything.
And I don't need like another like quote unquote interface because the burls would become that. I would just be buying a different brain for the burl and then plug that in, plug whatever other peripherals into a network switch. But you can get something like the Red 16 line or the Red 8 line. There's different versions of this.
Oh, yes. I've seen this one.
Yeah. This thing is bonkers. And this is not sponsored. I think that goes without saying. We're just nerding out. So one U-box. The connectivity on here is dumb. Like you have Dante here, if you want it. You have 16 line inputs, 16 optical inputs, all of the line outputs you could possibly want, 16 ADAT outputs, and plus a Dante network.
Jeez.
Yeah.
For roughly the same price as the HDX card, for the Avid card.
Mm-hmm. And this box by itself will be 64 by 64.
Jeez.
In and out. It's crazy. Like the flexibility you could do. Like when I was shopping for stuff when I was here, the max you could get was 16.
Yeah.
16 and 16 out on a box. And that was like, I'll never use all of it. I used all of it.
Was it a recent project where you maxed out your 64?
It was actually a country record.
Oh,
that
really?
We just did. Yeah. And that was just because I was trying weird stuff. But that's always me. I'm trying weird stuff. And having stuff available for players to walk up to and play.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's the stuff that makes sessions fast. Even if we don't use them, having the roads hooked up and ready to go was super important. Because I'm not going to stop a room where there's like a couple $1,000s happening in that day.
Say, hey guys, give me like 20 minutes to go hook this up and make sure the line runs.
Yeah, that's an expensive 20 minutes.
It is, yeah.
So you can make your money back. That's how I'm thinking about it. Anything that saves me time and saves me brain power, I'm all in.
Yeah.
And the other potentials for Dante, like incorporating like these little boxes here, like I could send you guys where now you have the power plays.
Mm-hmm.
You could use a Focusrite app and essentially mix your ears, but you wouldn't just get 16. You could have 128 if you wanted. Ooh. That's a lot to mix yourself.
That's a lot of power for the player.
Right. In most cases, that wouldn't happen. And for the Behringers anyway, like I'm normally mixing most people's ears, so I'm not opposed to moving away from that.
Yeah. And that would be easier, right? Because even if you are mixing everybody's ears, you don't have to physically be next to them, which I see you have to do a lot because a lot of people just they're not experienced in mixing their own system.
Right. The power plays were kind of a means to an end that I needed to figure out when I opened the building. And
hey,
they've held their own for like 12 years.
They still work. They still sound good enough to make a record.
That's the motto for those. Good enough.
Yep.
Like if I was building another place though, I would not put those in right now though.
Yeah. There's so many other options.
Yeah.
So let's say let's take like a vocal ISO booth as an example. Let's say you have one Ethernet port built in already. Do you need to get a splitter of some kind because you need to get the microphone signal? We're also assuming that you put like a different preamp or something in the room. Would you need to have a splitter of some kind so you can send back the microphone data, but also use an Ethernet port for the monitors, for the ear monitor system? That
I'm not 100% sure on, but I mean, even if you did need to split it, like a $20 gigabit splitter, but what I think you could do is like you have like a Dante in and out, and if you just connect those two things, like you're daisy chaining those pieces, it's just on the network, and each piece has its own IP, so it'll remember what it was set up for, and the name that device had, and the routing that device had. So, like taking a live context, like one of the buddies I was talking to who was walking me through this, he was like, our stage plots, like in this large church, are dumb fast because we don't have to remap everything audio wise because the Dante network assigns a unique IP, and when it goes off the network and comes back on, it knows what it's supposed to do. It knows all the routing.
And because they're digitally daisy chained, it doesn't matter the order they're plugged in, right?
Yeah.
Oh man.
And like you could plug it in a completely separate part of your building or multiple buildings. If they're on the same network, it does not matter. So he took an entire setup that was on stage, moved it to a different portion of the building, and didn't have to mess with it. It just hook it back up into the network and you're running. Yeah. Like it just works. So all of your in-ear mixes are exactly the same. You don't have to remap a thing. It just works. That's what's bonkers to me.
Now here's my question, Jeremy. When are we going to just hook it up to a router and we just Wi-Fi studio? The first Wi-Fi studio. Because
part of this is like in my bill of like purchasing things, there's a couple router boxes. I don't know how
I mean, Wi-Fi 7 is wicked fast.
I wondered that same thing. Like if you were completely wireless, but then that's a whole other side of stuff I don't understand.
You wouldn't want to. So many problems can go that way. But if you wanted to just like real quickly throw up an extra monitor system for something randomly, I don't know why you would, but it'll be interesting to see how it operates via Wi-Fi.
Well, and this is the cool thing about Dante. So like, okay, so you want to have 2 channels of something somewhere. Here you go. Pop this bad boy onto the network, and now you've got 2 analog outputs wherever you want it.
Jeez.
So you want a set of active speakers outside for some reason? We could do that.
Or just you have another monitor room, right? Or like a dedicated mixing room or something.
Yeah. I mean, some of these are locked at like specific sample rates and bit depths. So in some cases, this would not work, but this is what's possible. And this is what's exciting, because the other part about this, you could set up like all of your outboard gear like this. That'd be pretty cool.
That would be very cool.
For me, I'm going to keep it on my burls because that conversion is insane.
And you already have the pieces. Like, why would you not utilize them?
But the possibilities here are just bonkers to me.
This is so cool. This is a world of just music gear that I knew existed but didn't know anything about because I never needed to. I
feel like I've done nothing but research this for weeks, and I'm like this far into it. Like there's so many possibilities, and that's the people that I've talked to are like, well, yeah, you can do that, or you can do this, or you can do it this way, or you can do it this way. And there's people that I talked to running broadcast trucks who have been HTX for a long, long time. Switched to completely Dante. It's working absolutely flawlessly because HTX is good. It has its issues. I feel like Dante gets pushed back as being like this fragile network system. But what I can tell you is I've run it in a live context and front of house contest for years, and I've never seen a single Dante hiccup ever. I'm sure that has to do with like the strength of the peripherals you're running it on. But I mean, we're just running max everywhere, and it's balling. And I guess the other thing, I'm talking myself into this right now. Like I've been so concerned about latency in the system, but I'm running it live. Everything I'm feeding back to players is like, it's coming to me via Dante.
Getting converted.
I'm mixing it. Yeah. I'm sending it back to them via Dante. It's going into personal mixers via Dante, and it's getting to them that way. And they're all doing it in real time. Weird.
I like it. I think it's cool. I think it's neat. I want a Dante setup, and I have zero use for one.
The thing I think here, because we're talking about doing more with this channel and my channel, like the flexibility of a system like that in here, having like multiple rooms going at the same time, multiple video setups going at the same time, having video over Dante anywhere we want it.
That'd be so cool. Just live stream our whole studio session.
So if we want to look at this, I mean, this might be hyper niche. Do we want to see what it would like cost to switch me over to Dante?
I want to see that. And obviously, just like all the other like build list stuff that we've done, there are so many different routes you can go and options. You already mentioned that when we started looking at the Focusrite options, but there are other brands, other price points, other pros and cons. But this is your build list, Jeremy. This is your world. You do what you want.
So I would go with the PCIe NX card because I can incorporate what I already have into a system like that. I need a BMB3 card. Can you not just buy the specific card? I ain't buying a whole mothership, Sweetwater. Come on now.
Maybe Sweetwater doesn't provide it?
They may not. That may have to come like from Burl. Or here's one on Vintage King. 900-ish bucks. 945. Okay. We can make that work.
Mm-hmm.
What's this? Oh, here's a B16 with a B for 1,000. Oh, now I'm just shopping. A fully loaded mothership for 12,500. That's a deal. Each one of those cards is like $3,000.
Oh, gee. So how many cards is in a fully loaded one?
8, I think. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10. There you go. Oh, because there's 80 possible inputs and outputs. So you could have like 10 slots of 8 inputs at a time.
Gotcha.
Giving you 80. What is this?
That seems like a wicked deal then.
B84s. So this is not 80, but that's a interesting. I might have to look at that again. Sorry. Let's get back on track here. So the other thing this gets rid of, like now I have the potential to sell my HDX card, which they sell for crap. Mm-hmm. If you remember, the brand new, those are like $5,000. Selling it, I could probably get $1,500 out of it, maybe.
Which, I mean, isn't what you should be able to sell it for, but pays for the Dante card.
Yeah, it does. The other thing that I have to get rid of is my Avid HDIO digital, because I have a lot of optical inputs and outputs. Like that's
is that the big box?
That's the gray one.
Okay, so that's what I thought the card was originally.
No, that's just another thing that's hanging off of the card. Mm-hmm. So the burl is in slot 1, and that's in slot 2. Yep. So the burl is basically all my analog inputs and outputs, which is weird to say because it's going into a digital card anyway. The HDIO is digital, which it just has 16 inputs via Dante. 16 inputs via ADAT and 16 outputs. Like my junk Prius for talkbacks, and it's powering the power plays that way. It's a massive box just to get.
It is a huge box.
16 and 16 out. Like it's kind of dumb. And those resell are awful. But I bought that used, which is good. Because if you were to go buy one now, like you can pick one used $800. I've seen them cheaper than that. Here, $529. Awesome. That sucks for me. That's good for you if you want one. But like, they're just dumb expensive, brand new. Like it makes no sense.
Yeah.
Like $2,000. That's insane.
It's $2,000 too much.
Just to get ADAT ports, essentially. Like here, this is just so you can have the possibility to purchase something else. Dumb. So it gets rid of that. So what I need to replace is.
So we're potentially looking at 23. We can round to $2,500 worth of selling value
ish
on a good day.
So one thing I looked up was like a Ferrofish Dante to ADAT converter, which just gets me like back to where I am right now. Mm-hmm. There's other like more slick ways to do this. Like if I just get Dante preamps, but if I just want to get right back to where I am right now, this will do that for me. I think the Matty. I don't know if this is the specific box, but there's different boxes here. But like $1,500, and this is Matty. Where's the other one? Mm-hmm. This is an expensive little boy. But getting some kind of interface that will allow me to just basically put it on the Dante network and then use the ADAT inputs.
Yeah, the way you have it all without reconfiguring everything.
That basically gets me turnkey day one, and then I can slowly change out the other pieces, because the other potential I have here is getting like a Dante monitor controller.
Yeah.
And then that gets rid of my really expensive monitor control. So
that's a pretty hefty negative aspect of converting your studio. It would just be the downtime. Like how long do you have to be non-operational?
I think it'd just be a couple days.
Yeah. If you go that route, right?
Yeah. If I'm changing out everything, I mean, you could do it in a smart way. Like I would just be making Ethernet cable, which I have 1,000 feet of bulk cable anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be easy. Then changing out the card and the computer, like I could run them side by side for a little while if I want to.
This is fair. Yeah.
And then, I mean, your downtime's not really that much. It's just, it sucks because you have to purchase everything before you can resell what you're getting rid of if you don't want that downtime.
Yeah.
If you're contingent upon the sale, you could be down for weeks, which would suck. But if you're starting from ground zero going Dante, that seems like a no-brainer at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you could still have like an insanely high-quality system that's ridiculously flexible with inputs and outputs anywhere in your building if there's a hookup. Like, it's...
That part is still just crazy to me.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
I mean, you could say the same thing. We'll just run a snake wherever, but those are dumb expensive, and they get damaged like crazy, especially if you can move them.
And they get in the way.
They get
if you don't have them embedded in the wall.
Yeah.
Like,
we used to work at a studio here, like big studio close to the university that we went to, and they had like floor units that you could send anywhere, and those things got damaged all the time.
All the time.
Like, so. And they're way more expensive. So it's a completely different way to think about setting up a studio. But it has me excited.
I'm excited for you. Because I look forward to hopefully you pulling the trigger on something, and then maybe we get to see the transition period, see the ins and outs. I like that stuff. I don't even know much about it, and I like it. I'm just a nerd like that. I'm so much of a nerd this whole time we've been talking about Dante. All I can think of is Hades, which is a video game. I just started it because Hades 2 just came out, and I want to play that one so bad that I have to play the first one. So, I'm a nerd. I like this stuff, even though I have no use case for using it in my personal setup at all.
One of the other cool things is you can set up virtual sound check machines. So like you could have a capture machine and a mixing machine. Like the flexibility is dumb. That's how I run broadcast. There's so many possibilities here. It's almost overwhelming. Like,
could you? Obviously, there will be latency with this, and maybe you could already set this up in some way here easily. But I'm just brainstorming if there was a easy way to just have like an off-site connection that you like do a port through or something. So say you're at home and you're recording a bass or something for whatever reason, you're just noodling and you're like, I wish I could send that through my Neve.
You'd have to have physical connection. Like if I had my house is not far from here, so I'm within the constraints of a Dante network going that far, which is pretty cool. But I mean, it's no different than like a large multi-site church running Dante. Like if it's in the network, it's in the network. Like I don't know of a way to remotely access the network. I don't know. But then 6 months ago, a year or so ago, you couldn't get video on Dante.
How does it know that you're on the network? Does it use like the local area network?
I'm not a network specialist. I don't know.
Because if it does, you can set up like a Hamachi and you can spoof a local network and send it over internet, but it thinks that you're still on Whisper Studio local network. I do that to run servers for Pal World.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
That sounds like experiment time.
Yeah.
Focusrite, you want to jump on this train with us? Just help us transition out a little bit.
It'd be fun.
Make it that much easier for me to pull the trigger. I don't know whether I'm an audio purist or not, but I can definitely hear people who are audio purists think this is a terrible idea. Myself, I at some point would have probably said that I'm a purist and like all this digital stuff is stupid. But I mean, when it all comes down to it, I just want to make music and the other stuff to just get out of the way. And if a system like this can get out of the way, and it's cheaper, and it's more flexible, and you can move it if you have to move your building, or if you're doing this in an apartment or a house that you're renting, and you can take the stuff with you.
Why not?
Why not? Tell me.
Really, though, tell us why not if you know. Because I don't know anything about it. Jeremy's still learning about it.
It's exciting, though.
It is exciting.
And it's not like it's new. Somebody out there is going to be like, why are you talking about Dante? This has been out for 10 years. Facts. But.
Jeremy, what have you been listening to?
Oh, gosh.
I can tell you what I've been listening to. I've been listening to it a lot.
What?
I've been listening to the song Ronald by Falling in Reverse.
It's on my top picks right there. It's so over the top.
It is 110% full throttle in every aspect you can imagine. The whole time. I urge you, if you haven't, okay, it's by Falling in Reverse.
Already controversy there.
Some controversy there. I watched a podcast with him, and he doesn't do very many podcasts. And it was pretty cool to see a more long form conversation where they're not just attacking him and stuff. But I don't know enough about him to comment on controversy and all that. However, Ronald is just over the top, headbanging goodness the whole time. It's every single metal trope you can imagine, just smushed together. It features Tech Nine doing the Tech Nine thing as almost like a bridge section. It has, what's his name? Alex Terrible from Slaughter to Prevail featured at the outro. It's just awesome. But
is he the devil in the video?
Yeah.
Okay, I wondered.
So
it's his voice.
If you haven't heard it, or even if you have but haven't watched the music video, I implore you, watch the music video, especially if it's the first time that you'll be listening to it. If you haven't heard of this and you're like in the car and you're like, oh, I'll pull it up and listen right now. You could. Don't. Just don't. Wait until you're not moving. Maybe pull over and pull up the music video to watch. It is insane. But that's what I've been listening to. And this is a whole other tangent that we don't need to get into. But I'd really be interested to hear your take on the ins and outs of like, how do they get it to sound like that? Because it is louder than everything that I put it up against on the same platform.
That's a whole thing, because you can hear the distortion in their tracks.
You can't, well, like especially the outro. It's purposeful distortion at the outro, but it's louder than everything, but there's still low end, but there's still clarity, and there's still punch.
I don't know. I think the clarity is just really good arrangement decisions, because those mixes are so freaking loud. So loud. Like everything is distorting, and that's why his voice has to be so dry. Mm-hmm. And then you only hear the effects when like that last snare that's it's because there's nothing else happening.
Yeah.
Like it's definitely an art form in and of itself to get something that loud and have it palatable, but man, it's loud.
It's so loud. So that's what I've been listening to, Jeremy. How about yourself?
This is an old record. Have I given out parachutes before? Coldplay?
I don't think so. I don't think we've talked about that band on here yet. Every few years I go back to this record and I'm like, it's just so darn good. Like Parachutes, Coldplay, Don't Panic, Shiver, Spies, Sparks, Yellow, Parachutes. It's been a long time since I've listened to that album.
It's so darn good, man.
That was a cool era of Coldplay too.
It was. Like I don't listen to their new stuff, but like this record is like an exercise in simplicity and like performance, I think, because it's not, I don't know, maybe for the time it was hyper produced. I don't know. But to today's standards, this is like raw.
Yeah.
Pretty raw. And I think it's important to like equalize out every once in a while. Like
not everything has to be J-pop or balls to the wall.
Yeah, which I think we have hyper opposites right now. But that whole record and the way it was constructed, there was a whole lot more intentionality involved, and it's just a breath of fresh air to kind of go back and listen to. It's not.
You might need a breath of fresh air if you listen to Ronald.
Go listen to that first.
You'll be panting and holding yourself up against the wall.
Although I guarantee he's one of those dudes that thinks about, like, okay, I want this video, so I'm gonna arrange my music. Because the machine shots,
dude. So we're skipping back to my rec, I guess. There's a lot that I appreciate about it. I will, for sure, I will agree that there's a lot of tropes. You know, there's a lot of let's make this ridiculous for the sake of it being ridiculous.
Oh, and I'm not saying it's not cool. It's cool.
No, for sure. I really appreciate how it feels like the cinematography and the music co-evolved.
Yeah, very much.
It's like there was a visual direction and a sound direction growing at the same time.
Yeah.
Which makes it feel so symbiotic when you watch the full thing together.
And hearing the song first and then seeing the video, I was like, this is shocking. Like, they painted the picture. It's like they knew what they wanted when they were writing the song. It's a really interesting way to create art in that way. Mm-hmm. Some people will be like, that's not art, but whatever.
Oh, it's totally art, man. Come on. The sheer amount of, I don't know.
It's like if you give a Marvel team a lot of cocaine and you tell them to go
or meth, maybe.
Go make a video for a metal band. Like, this is what's gonna happen.
Did you see how short the list of credits is too?
No,
dude, not a whole lot of folks.
That's impressive.
Like, it was the visual effects credit was a line for a studio, so there's no telling how many people there were for that aspect. But there's a lot more than the visual effects is over the top. You'll see. So a lot of work there, but there's a lot more other, more different type of work that needs to take place for them to pull it off the way that they did. And I was surprised to see such a short list of credits. So
go watch the video.
Watch the video.
You'll feel yourself getting tired. Like, it's a ride.
And just so you don't have to feel bad, we're going to end things so you can go watch the video. Before you leave, though, remember, like and subscribe if you dig it. Let us know what you think about Dante, what you know about Dante. Pros, cons. Do you use it? Are you tempted to use it? Why are you using it? Why haven't you used it? Let us know. And if you stuck around this long, what are they dropping in the comments?
Is there like an Ethernet plug?
Probably. There is like a power plug, I think.
Okay, yeah, drop that power plug in there.
There you go. If you stuck with us this long, drop a power plug. It's the closest thing we have to an Ethernet cable emoji.
Oh, and if you stuck around long enough, here's your prize. You get to see Ghosty and Doom.
Oh, yeah.
There you go.
Ghosty and Doom. I like that a lot.
Yeah, just don't show my messages.
I'm going to show all your messages. We didn't really talk about it much, but there's still the link for recordingstudiouniversity.com. It'll be in the description if you're interested in learning more about pretty much all things music, instruments, theory, recording, mixing, all that kind of stuff. We're looking to build something for all of you that are interested. So you can enter your email. You're not going to get spam. You're not signing up to pay for anything. You're not signing up for anything right away. We're just gauging interest level, and it's going to help us help you. Bye.
Bye.